Well, well, well. Want to know? Want to know? And it feels great. Feels awesome. Feels darn good. 34-6 is your final score. My name is Adam Jacobi. I am here with the Iowa Sports Review, representing GoIowaAwesome.com. And week one is in the books for our Hawkeyes. And what do you know? What do you know? It wasn't that close for very long. Two touchdown returns by Riley Moss, who I've always said is the best cornerback in Iowa football history. Everyone who knows me knows that I say that all the time, and I've said it for 20 years. I've said it since Riley Moss was a toddler, a child, and I've been proven right. Finally, he's the best cornerback that has ever put on the Hawkeye uniform. The results are right there. No, the defense as a whole was incredible today. I believe that they got hands on 7 of Penix's passes. 3 of them were picked off. One of them was called back on a roughing the passer, which, I mean, it was a little bit iffy, but if it had gone the other way, I think I would have been a little bit upset if they had touched our special baby Petrus that way. So I get it. But the team also dropped 3 more interceptions, right? So Penix had one of the worst days of his career, non-like ACL related. In terms of actual on-field performance, he was miserable, absolutely miserable. And it's not that Iowa held him to an 0-20 game or anything like that. That's just never going to be the way that the Iowa defense operates. What they did do is limit the passes to, for the most part, the higher percentage, but shorter throws, things that are in front of the defense, things that make it really easy to put the Hoosiers in a third down, maybe even a third and long situation. And Penix isn't good enough to deal with situations like that. And his receivers, they were supposed to be a strength. And Ty Freifogel, he's the real deal, but between a rebuilding offensive line, which Indiana has, and a little bit of inexperience there on the receivers' part, and I think Indiana just didn't call a very good game. It's going to be hard to call a good game against an Iowa defense, especially in week one. But Penix wasn't in a winnable situation today, and he threw them out of the game basically. And I think he's not going to be the only quarterback who does that this season. Not everything went perfectly, obviously, but boy, when you don't play an A+ game and you still beat a top 20 team 34-6, in a game that was also, a 28-point game at halftime, you'll take it every day. You'll take it every day. So a lot of fun to be had for those of you who are going to be watching on DVR. You're in for a treat. You're in for a real treat. Anyway, welcome everybody to the show, which we are legally not allowed to call the Hawkeye Sound Off. But if you want to sound off about a game that just happened, involving any number of teams that are named the Hawkeyes in FBS college football, feel free. We're not going to say no. Why would we say no? We're not going to say no. If you want to get some questions in, because this is your show after all I am is a talking head with a decent beard. I'm here to answer your questions. I'm here for you. So go to YouTube, You can put questions in the chat to your heart's desire, and we'll answer them forthright. Be sure to be sure to subscribe while you're there on the YouTube page as well. That makes it easier for us to keep doing the show, to keep providing the service to Hawkeye fans nationwide, really worldwide, because it is a worldwide movement. So the lines are open, as they say, and really looking forward to hearing everybody's thoughts. Is this live from JT Dvorak? No, I actually recorded all of this. I'm guessing that that's what somebody said, or that somebody will say when this goes live. Off in who's yes, we're live. Good to see you, JT. Welcome to the postgame show. How high do we see the Hawks go up in the top 25? That is an excellent question, Dan. Pretty darn high, I'm going to say. Obviously, in week one, there's not going to be a ton of situations where teams above the Hawkeyes lose, and there were a few upsets that didn't quite work out, but obviously UNC is going to be falling way down. It turns out that you can have an all-everything quarterback, but if you can't keep him upright, doesn't really matter. And I don't think that Virginia Tech, by way of that 7-point victory in Blacksburg over the number 10 team in the nation, they're not going to pass Iowa for that. Iowa had one of the most impressive wins in the nation as of right now. Now, Georgia Clemson is still in the early stages. I'm not going to say that Iowa's going to end up higher than either of them. That wouldn't be fair to either team. But could I see them at number 10? Yeah, I would say so. Because once again, this team looked like a legitimate top 5 defense in the nation. And they were looking like that last season too. I've been trying to hold off on a theory of mine, because if this game had gone the other way, which always could happen, we're Iowa fans, we understand that hype isn't always rewarded. But my theory that I've always been working on, or at the very least I've been working on since about December 2020, is that Iowa would have been ranked higher if it hadn't been for the cancellations at the end of the season. Because they were playing well enough that it would make sense that you could see this team being in that top 10, top 15 range. But when you don't get an opportunity to blow out Michigan to end the season in that little free-for-all thing that they were doing, when you don't get an opportunity to show it in a bowl game, then it doesn't take away anything about how actually good your team is, but it does mean that voters don't get a chance to see it. So I think that they got dinged a little bit. Fair or unfair, tough to say. And you can also make the case that it doesn't actually matter. I think it does a little bit. Voters reward what they see on the field. And, Iowa didn't get an opportunity, and I'm fine with it. Don't get me wrong. It was a safe and right thing to do, but Iowa didn't really get the same opportunity that other teams did to show just how good they were at the end of the season. And boy, they were really good, weren't they? I mean, there was a 6-game winning streak. Most of those games weren't close, and this one, again, not close. And we're talking about Big Ten games. We're talking about a top 20 opponent. And they didn't look like they belonged on the same field as Iowa. Is Indiana going to get dinged for that? Yeah. But I'm really not sure how you look at that game and look at the other games that those teams in that 10 to 20 range played. I don't know how you look at that and say, yeah, we're going to move Iowa up 2 points. Right? that looks like a borderline top 10 team right now. Much more than, say, a certain team. Let's just pick out a random number. 120 miles to the west of Iowa City. Let's say there's a top 10 team that's located right there. An actual top 10 team. Which one of them would you say played better today? I know you can only get so much out of one game in week one, but this is all the data we've got. This is all the data that voters have. So where do you think they belong? I think they're top 10. Number 9, number 10, thereabouts. Great question. Maddie, longtime listener, first-time caller. How do you feel about the rest of the season at this moment? Woo! I feel great. I'm calling it right now. I'm calling 15-0. I'm calling national championship because, one, it feels really good to call that, and two, it doesn't matter what I say, right? You always want to say, oh, well, don't get overconfident now. Oh, well, don't. It's one game at a time. Yeah, I know that, but I'm not the coach. I'm not on the team. I'm just a fan. Whether fans get super excited and overconfident or not has no bearing on what goes on the field. And so, knowing that, I'm going to say this team can beat any team that lines up against them, and that's what I want to happen. So that's what I'm going to predict. Yeah, JT Petrus. Okay, I was kind of hoping we could somehow, and maybe this was a little bit irrational, but I was sort of hoping we could make it the entire 90 minutes or 2 hours or however long we're on without bringing up the quarterback. It was one game. But I think I'm not telling any tales out of Sunday school here when I say that we saw a lot of some habits that we were really hoping were going to stay in 2020. Because, he still struggles quite a bit with things like checking down, with what happens when his first read isn't there. And his footwork in the pocket is not exceptional when he has to start improvising. If you look at the Go Iowa Awesome Twitter page, where you're probably reading or watching this right now, well, first of all, go to the YouTube page instead so you can send in your chats. But also, there's a replay of one of his dropbacks where it seems like he wants to turn around in a circle, but then he doesn't, and then he just throws it 5 feet over the receiver's head. And I guess you can do that against Indiana. And I with a defense like this, as long as he's not throwing interceptions, I'm okay with it. And presumably Kirk Ferentz is okay with it. But, man, I don't know. He was under 50% for the game. Some of those were drops, don't get me wrong. But it was nowhere near the sharpest game that we've seen out of a Hawkeye quarterback. And more importantly, I don't think anything that happened during this game is going to quiet anybody's desire to see a more extended run for Padilla. I really could look up how to pronounce that. I hope it's Padilla, because that sounds like what Porky Pig says at the end of all the Looney Tunes. Padilla. That's all, folks. And I'm out. Good night. No. That's it. I got my one joke in, and I think we can hang it up. All right. What were the concerns today? Well, we unfortunately we went over the quarterback situation. That's it. I mean, that was really something pretty close to a complete team win today, which is what makes it feel so good. The defensive line looked great. Um, they gave Indiana's offensive line absolute hell. Pardon my language, but um, you watch the way they play, and you wouldn't think that this is a team that just lost a ton of talent to the NFL, not only last season but the season prior. Um, they look as good and as disciplined as ever. There isn't anybody who jumps off the tape as a future first round pick or anything like that. Not yet, anyway. Not yet. Nobody did any crazy Davion Nixon type things. But in terms of what they wanted to do for the defense, and especially in terms of gap discipline and keeping the linebackers upright, they did a marvelous job. And that was one of the really big concerns. And they came through in flying colors. And speaking of the linebackers, oh my goodness. The hype had been around Jack Campbell coming into the season. And rightfully so. He had earned it in 2020. Seth Benson was in on every play. And that might sound like I'm saying he made a lot of plays. What I'm saying is he was on every play. They credited him with 10 tackles, 6 solo, 4 assisted. I think it was actually 200 tackles. I think he made 200 tackles against Indiana. Is that mathematically possible? No. But I think it's right. It feels right. And then the offensive line, they missed Kyler Scott shot. Again, I should be looking up these things, but I normally just type them. But at the same time, I don't think that they were the reason why Petrus had just sort of an okay game. I think they did fine. He had time for the most part. Tyler Linderbaum looked great. I'm glad that injury scare was nothing serious. And as Sam points out, hopefully the OL solidifies quickly. I think they will. If this is the way they look in week 1 against a quality Big Ten opponent, even though, yes, Indiana's defensive line is, not the best they're going to face, but they're missing a starting guard. There's no seniors on the line, or at the very least, there's none in the starting rotation right now. That was fine. I thought it was fine. And what was also nice is there were plenty of teachable moments, and this is the type of staff that can do a lot with those teachable moments. So, yeah, do they have things that they can work on coming into the Iowa State game? Of course there are. Of course they do. And I'm looking forward to seeing that too, because it's nice to know that this wasn't all just fluke type stuff. No, it's not going to be the case that Riley Moss scores 2 touchdowns a game for the rest of the season. Or is it? No. But it is going to be a situation where the secondary is putting a ton of pressure on the quarterbacks and really, really punishing some, whatever mistakes that those quarterbacks make, especially mistakes in accuracy, mistakes in timing. So if they can count on that pretty much every week, and they can solidify what's going on with their offensive line, and they didn't look bad. I just want to be clear about that. They're in really good shape for the season. Dan says, I'm sure the Cyclones are seeing everything slip away tonight. Oh, boy. We've seen enough in this rivalry to know that what happens in week 1, especially when FCS opponents are involved, is not quite as indicative of what's going to happen in week 2 when these two teams lock horns. That being said, if I were able to watch the Iowa State game, which for the number 7 team in a country, you would hope that they would be on, I don't know, television. Um, it was another really, really close game, and you and I had a chance to, at the very least, try to get the ball in the end zone for what would have been a game-winning or at the very least game-tying score. They didn't do the little pitchy woo-woo like they should have, but that game was too close, and you can only blame so much on Iowa State. Keeping it vanilla. Whatever competitive advantage you think you're going to get by not opening up your playbook in week 1 and then losing that game in week 1. It's really, really galaxy brain type stuff at that point. So, no, ISU struggled, and they're going to have to fix a whole lot more coming into week 2 than Iowa has to fix. That's just the simple fact of it. That feels good. And something that we talked about last week is the pressure of, coming off a big successful season like that, coming into those expectations, having big games, having a game like the Cyhawk game be one of their biggest games of the year and having all that national attention. Is that something that Matt Campbell can get his team all the way up for? Still don't know. So yeah, there's a lot of unanswered questions, and I think it's going to make the lead up to next week's game in Ames extra spicy. I can't wait for that. JT, some serious studs waiting in the wings if they can't solidify it. Oh, totally. The fact that Connor Colby is already in the 2 deeps is really a testament to how much the staff thinks of him. Because again, this is a young line, but they've recruited really well on this young line for years now, and they're really starting to reap the benefits of that. And you see guys like Mason Richmond, who's a redshirt freshman, and you're excited to see him also make that move up. But Colby coming out of, I think he's a Cedar Rapids kid, and getting the sort of praise that he does already from the staff. They didn't just put him on the 2 deep just to be nice to him. That was one of the things that I was wondering about. But no, they're going to play him, and I think they look at him still in sort of a positionless sort of way. He's probably not going to get a whole lot of snaps at center per se, but you could plug him in at guard, you could plug him in at tackle. And for a kid who's 6'6", 300 and was playing high school ball last year, that's really, really impressive. So yeah, I would agree. The future of the offensive line is super bright, and I don't think that it takes away from the present of the offensive line. They have improvement yet to make, but I think we are seeing the floor of performance for that line. As long as they stay healthy, we're seeing that floor come up and up and up a little more. And it's hard not to be excited about that. I beat this drum all the time, and the reason I do that is because it rarely gets proven wrong. And that is, in the Big Ten, you need to have a good offensive line. It's a really good idea to have a good defensive line too. But if you don't have a good offensive line, it doesn't matter what. It almost never matters what your skill position players do or what they're capable of. See Nebraska. See why Mike Riley didn't win at Nebraska. See why Scott Frost isn't really getting it at Nebraska. And also see why guys like Tim Brewster, Tim Beckman, the gentleman who came from Toledo to coach Purdue for like 2.5 years, none of them installed a good offensive line. And PJ Fleck or Red Bull Rob Corddry, you're never going to unsee it. he has them, they actually know a thing or two about playing in the trenches, and they've been successful because of it. It's not because like what Tanner Morgan, it's not like he's a first round pick or anything like that, and he's had good skill position players, but some of them even made it to the NFL. But at the end of the day, it's because they can run their offense on their own terms with the timing that it's designed to have because they have hosses up front. And if you don't, sorry, you know. All right. Sam asks, are you nervous about the run game? I wasn't paying close enough attention to see if they did the 8-man OL rotation. I'll be candid and transparent. I wasn't paying enough attention to that either. So I think it's a good question. Oh, boy. Georgia will be first on the board with 3 minutes left in the first half. That's a pick six. You don't want to do that. I don't know why Dabo called the pick six play. It's okay to call it on defense, but I think you're just giving away too much. I think if it's a tie game, you shouldn't let the defense take the lead for the other team. I'm no coach, and I've been kicked out of more math classes than I've passed, but I feel like in the grand scheme of things, you should not let the other team score when your team has the ball. I feel like that is the opposite of the goal of football. And people will try to burn me at the stake for saying that, but that's why they pay me the big bucks is to have takes like that. Laporta kind of reminded me of TJ Hawkinson a little today too. Yeah. Wow. So every white tight end is automatic. No, I'm kidding. He looked really good. He reminded me a little bit of Dallas Clark too, and not just because of appearance, but a lot of the work that he did in terms of after the catch, making sure that you're going upfield. Getting those extra, I don't want to call them phantom yards, but yards that are sort of the difference between a good drive and a very, very good point scoring drive. And those aren't always the things that show up in measurables, although I would bet that Laporta is going to do great at the combine, and Dallas Clark and Hawkinson and even Fant were guys who did well at the combine. But even with that, there is sort of an innate art that comes to playing tight end and to being a bigger receiver and knowing where you are going to get yardage, where you're not going to get yardage, and making the smart call in that moment. And I think that's a really underrated trait of the tight ends that Iowa continues to crank out. And Laporta's no different. So maybe innate isn't the perfect word because it's probably coached as much as anything. But yeah, it from my lay perspective, he plays tight end like an expert already, and that can make a big difference, even if it's just breaking this one tackle or that one tackle. The blocks that he makes, that's something that really matters. All right, it's 8:00 here in God's country. So welcome everyone who is in on this and chatting. Really glad to have you. Really, thanks for joining us. And what a great weekend to be sharing with each other. Breeze is nice on this late summer day. If you are watching on Periscope or Facebook, go ahead and shoot it on over to YouTube if you want to send your questions in to us in that chat. Also, be sure to hit like, hit subscribe, and that makes it easier for us to do this show and to bring quality people on with me. Not that any of you might, I don't know, get tired of seeing me or hearing my melodic, dulcet, really operatic voice. but we have good things in the works, and part of that is building out the support that we get from readers and viewers like you. So, yeah, be sure to hit like, be sure to hit subscribe, get your chats in right there, and we'll make this a show about not just about me, but about us. All right, Sam asks, if Georgia wins this game, are 3 playoff spots already spoken for with Alabama, Georgia, and Clemson? It's sort of an interesting question because one thing that was mentioned on the pregame shows today is Clemson and Georgia don't really have a whole lot of games against quality opponents for the rest of the year. I'm not sure that they have anybody who's even currently ranked on their schedule right now, is what I think I heard anyway, which is, does anyone in the chat know, is Florida really not ranked? Because I know Georgia's going to play Florida. But I also know that Gators lost a lot of talent. But, it's going to be a situation where if one of these teams loses big, and the fact that it took a pick 6 with 3 minutes left in the half just to get anybody on the board means it's probably not going to be a blowout. Probably not. But, if one of these teams looks like they're really not ready for the playoffs, and so far it looks like it's the onus is on Clemson to really, really prove that they belong there, then maybe only 2 are spoken for. Because I really don't know if Clemson ends up losing, like, let's say 20-0. What else are they going to be able to do over the course of the season that is going to convince voters that they belong in that top 4, other than, well, we're Clemson, and maybe that excuse of, well, we're Clemson, and maybe a little politicking by Dabo, maybe it's enough. I wouldn't count on it. And I think a lot of it just as much depends on what other teams do. If Ohio State goes 12-0 and God forbid Notre Dame goes 12-0, we'll say that, or even Oregon. I know that they struggled against Fresno. But if there are 4 undefeated, oh yeah, Ross. If there are 4 undefeated teams and one of them is not named Clemson, it's going to be really tough to convince me that they're going to be in that Final 4. Ladies and gentlemen, can we get producer Dan? If we can get Ross in landscape, that'd be great. Otherwise, we can just do this too. But Ross of Go Iowa Awesome as well. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, how's it going?
Doing well, doing good. I mean, what a game. It's pretty easy to be doing well today. Lots of drops from Sam today. 98 degrees. Had a hell of a route that Spencer whiffed on. 98 degrees being the nickname for Luke Lachey, obviously. And that's top-notch stuff. Yeah, it's not all Petrus's fault that he was under 500 for the day. And a few more chunks taken off of the notion that Nico Reganey is your hands guy. Again, I have my theory as to why people think that, but this is neither the time nor the place to mention that. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think Petrus was terrible, but I think that he also had opportunities to make plays that really good quarterbacks make, regardless of whether or not his receivers were catching them. And he just didn't throw competitive passes on a lot of them. Russ, what do you think?
Yeah, I think I was just concerned because a lot of the stuff we saw today looked like what we were seeing last year. Like the happy feet, overthrowing. I was starting to buy into all the preseason, like Petrus is better. He went to the guru and he's done all this film study, but it's not showing up yet.
Yeah. you got to imagine his teacher was watching that like, Jesus, we talked about this. Spencer, come on.
Yeah. It's like he just doesn't have the poise that you want to see yet. And, I don't know. And technically, this is what, his 9th game as a starting quarterback. So,
yeah. And more importantly, it's his second season, right?
Yeah.
There's an entire off season sandwiched in there. And if this is the worst game he has as a Hawkeye this season, great. I'll take that, and it might just be week 1 stuff, and bad drops and things that are correctable. It could be. I love it if that happened, but I think that this isn't our first rodeo with watching quarterbacks, and if a problem persists over multiple seasons, I don't have great confidence in that fixing itself.
I do feel like he should be buying Padilla dinner for the entire week, because those 2 plays from Padilla did everything to just completely shut down any narrative about let's see Padilla anytime soon. I mean, you can't judge him off that, but it's like there's nothing to get excited about from Padilla with those 2 plays.
All right, DJ says, did you guys decide to grow beards until we break that points allowed streak? Buddy, this is a lifestyle. Someone once said that beards are what's the word I'm looking for? Contour for men. All right. If this goes, I don't have great stuff happening under it, right? So I am not wagering having my face look good on what 18 to 22-year-olds do on a football field. I refuse.
Trust me, if I had a good jawline, you would see it. Like, I would not be hiding it.
Bill Cowher isn't walking through this door.
Yeah. Young Hayden Fry is not hiding underneath this this brush.
Who's really never gotten enough credit for his jawline, and it's on topic for this. Kirk Ferentz, I feel like, never got enough credit for his jawline. It's legit. It's what you would expect from a guy who played linebacker in college.
It's strong, and frankly, it fits with my theory of, I feel like the number of good college coaches, probably any level of coach, with a good jawline versus without, I feel like it tilts very strongly towards the good jawlines.
I would say so. And don't get me wrong, Hayden's is otherworldly. It's a sort of thing that you build a bust of just on jawline alone. He could be like a middle manager accountant, and you're like, no, that's legendary stuff, John. We are going to immortalize you, and not for your accounting skills. But Kirk Ferentz, really, really underrated jawline. So chomping gum will firm up that jawline. Yeah, I mean, I think that's also an underrated part of it too. It's just, I mean, really, really using that high intensity interval training on jaws, because it down hard, it's basically mouth CrossFit is what it is. Mouth CrossFit. This is the post-game show. All right, we got a question. Going into the game, I thought Indiana and Iowa both were underrated. Is Iowa just that much better, or is Indiana not that good? Ross, your thoughts?
I mean, it's week 1, right? So it's always hard to, make that knee-jerk reaction. I mean, my feeling after that game is I feel generally good about Iowa. I mean, usual concerns about the offense, I think, notwithstanding. Indiana, I have concerns about. I feel like this feels like one of those games where, yeah, this was a top 20 win for Iowa. I'm not sure in November, we're looking at Indiana and they're sitting at like 7-4 or something. It's like, well, that was still a good win, but
7 wins might be pushing it. because the things that they look bad at today, maybe you can say, credit to Iowa's defense, but there's a non-zero chance that they just tricked us all the last year or two.
Yeah, I think my biggest question after that game is, what's real? Is the Iowa defensive line that good, or is Indiana's offensive line that bad, or a little bit of both? I mean, if Iowa's defensive line is as good as it looked today, like, we can get by with a pretty crummy offense with that kind of defense.
Yeah. I mean, anytime when Riley Moss is your team's leading scorer at the end of the game, something has gone either horribly right or horribly wrong. It depends on which side of the field you're on. Terrible matchup for Indiana. Indiana thrives on turnovers and big plays. That is true. That is one of the reasons why they've been so good. They mentioned on the telecast that coming into the season or for the 2020 season, Indiana had been best in the Big Ten at red zone defense, that they had only given up points on less than 2/3 of red zone possessions, which is incredible for the course of a season. And part of that is just forcing the other team into mistakes, especially on short and compressed fields. And that is, like Adam Stricker says, Adam, thank you for that chat. That's never been Ferentz's deal, or if it is, those quarterbacks don't stick around very long. Jake Christensen. So, I mean, yeah, it was a bad matchup. Dan, there you go. Ross is on his side. We'll get you there, buddy. But there are teams that win bad matchups all the time, because there's just some measure of luck that goes into a football game too. And Iowa took full advantage of those bad matchups. They played their game. They played to their strengths, and certainly this wasn't a fluke. If these teams played 10 times, one, they'd both quit after like game 3. They'd be like, "This is stupid." But 2, Iowa would probably win 9 of those 10 games, 8 or 9 of them, because I don't see how Indiana puts together 60 minutes without a lot of luck, and outscores over that.
I think the thing that surprised me today was I was really concerned about Penix. How was that?
Short, yes. For his sake and for YouTube's sake, we're going to say Penix.
I was surprised by how bad Penix looked. I mean, I remember watching him last year, and he was the second best quarterback in the Big Ten after Fields at Ohio State, which is a big gap, of course. But
no, that was a good claim while he was healthy. Yeah,
he looked really threatening, and I was like, oh, what's he going to do against Iowa? And the answer is nothing at all.
And I could see how a quarterback like him, watching today, I could see how he could be good. Like Sam here, thank you for the chat, Sam. I think Penix Freifogel can punish a lot of mediocre teams and will end up overrated because of it, just like last year. Yeah, I can totally see that happening. Because when Penix was able to, make his first read and throw on it, he's an accurate thrower for the most part. Now, there were some very, very bad throws in there too, and some of that is just the way Iowa secondary punishes quarterbacks, but also his timing is pretty darn good on those crossing routes. So when he's got an open guy to throw to, he's dangerous. And are there mediocre teams that have mediocre secondaries that skill position players like that with enough time can really take advantage of? Yeah. I think it also helps quite a bit that Iowa's defense is athletic enough that Penix couldn't just, try to turn a corner and make hay that way too. And part of it might also be the surgically repaired knee. For all we know, the coaches have said that's too risky. Could be. But, there are other teams, Nebraska, out there that that Penix would probably drop 40 on without breaking much of a sweat. It's just that Iowa's not one of them.
Well, and I think probably the biggest concern for him this year is going to be that offensive line. Like, if they're just being like a turnstile and a traffic cone like they were today, he's going to be, he'll probably be out of the, hurting out for the season by week 5 or something. But
yeah, I again, for Indiana's sake, I hope that it just means that Iowa's defensive line is that good. Because if this is the type of traffic that Penix has to deal with week in, week out, that hype train is donezo quick with him. Joe says, we ragged on Petrus a lot. Not just you. I did too. But I think I counted none bad decisions throwing the ball today. Decent point. Maybe the one down the seam to Laporta that's absolutely winning formula. It depends on your definition of a bad decision. Thank you for that, chat. As always, if you go to YouTube, you can always enter it into the chat, which is going to be in the bottom right of your screen. And we'll be able to see it here, answer it, and have some fun with each other. So thank you, Joe, for that. Yeah, I think it depends on your definition of a bad decision. Because Indiana, it's not like they were dropping interceptions even the way that Iowa was dropping them, to say nothing of the ones that Riley Moss took to the house. So I'll give him that his incompletions were not dangerous incompletions. By the definition, or by Kirk Ferentz's definition of bad decisions, I would agree. I think that, and that's also probably what's going to keep Petrus in that starting role for. Well, I think at bottom, it's like what they do with coaches, that they automatically get that extension so they can recruit with 4 or 5 years in front of them. I think that bottom another week of being of not having his seat warming up. But at the same time, especially in today's game, I wonder. I mean, his stats were just not good, and only some of that is because of the drops. There's only so much you can say about a quarterback who went 13 for 27, 145 yards, nothing longer than 24 yards. He did have the rushing touchdown, and I thought that was a really, really good play call and execution too. And so I think that is a positive for Petrus. But I mean, gosh, there are quarterbacks who had like 250 yards of passing today or this week, and with objectively bad games. Hunter Johnson immediately comes to mind. Northwestern was never competitive in that game against Michigan State, and he ended up with like 250 yards. So, it's not just counting stats, but at the same time, if you throw for 100 fewer yards than some of these guys who, put up their stats, but, just weren't good. Sean Clifford, also 250 yards, and part of that was just throwing wide open receivers. I think what that tells you is the standards for what makes a productive quarterback in today's college football landscape. Those standards keep rising, and those are standards of productivity, and they keep getting higher and higher. And if Petrus is still performing at a Vandenbergian level in terms of the yardage that he gets, If this keeps up for a whole lot longer, that's going to be a problem. Now, that being said, we don't know that that's going to be a problem. We don't know that come week 2 or thereafter, we don't know that he's not going to throw for anything longer than 24 yards, right? That could be play calling as much as anything. That could be whatever. But I think if this is all the data that we've got to go on for what 2021 Spencer Petras looks like, dicey. And I think probably most people on the Iowa coaching staff would tell you the same thing. Ross, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm really curious about, just because of the way this season is laid out, the schedule, opening with Indiana and Iowa State, two, on paper, very difficult games. This one wasn't as quite as difficult as, most of us expected, I think.
Right.
I think next week will be, though. But then you get the next 2 games with, I think, Kent State and Colorado State are the 2 after that, before we get back into Big Ten play. And I'm really curious to see what they do in those 2 games. Like, how much do they use those games to try and, build up Petras's confidence and try and, get him playing at a good level? Do they get Padilla some more snaps or more opportunities? And I'm sure it'll probably depend on what he, how does he look against Iowa State next week? Can he, if he throws for 250 yards and a couple touchdowns against Iowa State, then, we probably write off this week as, just, opening jitters or whatever.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would absolutely agree. Past performance is not indicative of future results, and that is proven true time and time again in college football. Can Phil Parker get a Best Coach in the Big Ten award? Is it possible? And also Sam says the fact that Phil Parker isn't talked about incessantly on college football talk shows is enough evidence of the quality of those programs. Heck of a point, because you can probably count on one hand, and maybe even 0 hands, the amount of defensive coordinators in the last 10 years, consecutively even, who have proven their worth so often as Phil Parker, right? It's not like Brent Venables, who, by all accounts, great defensive coach. He also gets 5-star talent every year. Alabama, yeah, of course, yeah, their defense should be good, right? It would be a shock if they weren't good, and it's not solely because of coaching, although that is, part of it, especially on defense. But Parker gets guys that he wants. Some of them are 4 stars, some of them are 3 stars, but some of them are 2 stars. At the end of the day, Iowa's coaching staff does a tremendous job of identifying prospects who are going to be able to do the things that a defender needs to do for their position and be successful as part of the defensive unit. It is some incredible mix of expertise and just plain mojo that they know how to do this. And part of it is probably strength and conditioning as well, just getting these guys ready to play for 4 quarters. But everyone has a strength and conditioning coach, everyone has a defensive coordinator, everybody has lofty recruiting expectations, or at least they should. So the fact that Parker does this so well, and with what looks on paper to be the same level of assets that like the middle of the Big Ten gets every year, yeah, I totally agree that we're talking about some national coach of the year type stuff. In terms of why he doesn't get talked about more, I think that's just because that's the way they want to do it at Iowa. One of the I don't want to call it a dirty secret so much as just how the sausage is made. But it's not like, insert um, studio host here. It's not like Matt Leinart knows more about college football than anybody else in the world. And presumably he knows more than I do. But a whole lot of times these studio shows talk about what producers want them to talk about. Producers get ideas for what to talk about. Obviously, who's number one, who's number two, but also who's available, what information is being freely shared with these people. If you want to work in relative obscurity in sports, it's easier than you think. And I think that is one thing that Iowa football wants to do. Now, we're not talking about it's not like nobody knows his name, but there's more control over how visible and talked about these guys are. There's more control that is wielded by athletic departments on that than you would expect, because it doesn't that part of it, that sausage making doesn't happen publicly. But I can tell you that a whole lot of times these studio shows, media people in general, they work off of help that media relations people give them. And if Iowa does, if Iowa's not trying to get Phil Parker on every ESPN screen, he's probably not going to be there. And I think that probably works great for everybody in the athletic department. So that's not a complaint. It's just that's how this media machine operates. Adam Stricker with probably the best and most incisive comment of the night. Australia punters greater than New Zealand punters makes sense. New Zealand, island, technically, too. Australia, continent. I mean, Ross, find the lie, right?
There isn't a lie. I mean, it's just geographic truth. You can't argue it.
Yeah. I mean, we do have to dock a little bit because there is North Island and South Island. So technically, New Zealand islands. But that being said, those islands next to Australia, those suck. Just bozo territory all around.
Adam, I do think we need to talk about probably the most concerning thing of the game today, though.
Please.
When do we start panicking that Torrey, our Lord and Savior Taylor, didn't pin any of his punts inside the 5-yard line?
3 touchbacks is deeply concerning. And and it's also concerning because, they got him Vegemite for the spread a day or two ago. And so I wonder if he's, I don't know, a little...
Do you get drunk on Vegemite? I don't know how it works. So.
Oh, God, I hope not. Although there is some fermentation going on. No, I think we're just coddling him a little bit too much. He might be getting soft. So I think they got to revoke Vegemite privileges until he's knocking things down inside the 5 again on a routine basis. I don't want to see it just once against ISU. I mean, I want him to be back to MVP status. Then you can have your Australian garbage paste. Ross, have you ever smelled Vegemite?
I have not.
It is, I mean, it smells like something has died. I don't want to taste it. And they always say, oh, it's an acquired taste. That means it tastes bad. Sam
Add some sugar.
Yeah, well, you keep adding sugar, you get to Nutella. Sam says the punt that pulled up on the goal line, yes.
That was a good one.
Yes, and he got some serious oomph on that one too.
Yeah, that was almost an incredible punt. That was literal inches from just amazing.
Yes, and he was probably, I would say Torrey was probably as surprised as just about anybody that it ended up in the end zone. because it had to take at least one really good bounce into the end zone before it died and came back to the one. So we know he's good enough to do it. We saw it last year. We saw that he's very close. I think he's just a little bit spoiled. I think we've got I think we've got a diva on our hands, a Vegemite diva. Prove me wrong, Tori. Prove me wrong, Aussie punt god. Yeah, 6 inches from the goat punt, boy. And it's not like he was hurting for candidates on that one last year either. So we're not going to panic just yet. We just need to take some corrective actions. And does that mean starving our punter for a week? Maybe. All right, we got another question here. It seems like he had all day to throw, but maybe our guys just weren't getting open to. That's in terms of making good decisions, bad decisions, what we talk about. Yeah, there's a lot of information that we don't have about what Peters was looking at, what he was supposed to look at, what his reads were. I mean, half the time on those plays, we can't even see the receivers at all. They're just not on the screen. So, yeah, it could be the case that, the receivers weren't breaking open. Some of that has to do with receivers, with their skill set. Some of that has to do with routes. Some of that has to do with defense. And some of it just has to do with anticipation that a quarterback may or may not have. So, yeah, it's easy for us to sit back and say, well, he should have completed 75% of his passes. I mean, yeah, and monkeys might fly out of Phil Parker's butt. We don't know if he had 75, percent completable passes to begin with. It really might be the case that whatever they were trying to do just wasn't working against the Indiana secondary, and the best thing he could have done was just chuck it to 10-foot tall taco pants on the sideline. That could be the case, and I'm willing to see that. That being said, that at best, what that suggests then is that, oh no, our passing game has deep problems again. Oh no, don't worry, it's not the quarterback's fault. It's systemic. That's not better. I hope that Peters just had a bad game, because bad games can turn into good games. Bad passing systems don't really turn into good passing systems. So
yeah, I always enjoy hearing from people who are at the game on this point, because they're usually able to see more of the play. The TV angle we get is so constricted, in terms of how we see the offense on most plays. So usually people at the game can see the whole field. If they're paying attention, they can, sometimes see how well receivers are getting open. So I would certainly be curious to see if they saw anything different.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I mean, there's a reason why when you play Madden or NCAA, and also the footage that coaches trade, it's always from the perspective of the end zone. Now, obviously, that makes for worse television. Don't get me wrong, but in order to really evaluate where something might be going wrong, especially in a passing game, yeah, that depends on a viewpoint that not only we don't have as viewers, but really nobody has outside of people who are watching from one of the two end zones. But yeah, the people at the game, there's a whole lot of things unfolding play by play that you get to see there that you just don't get to see anywhere else. All right, I love Tyrone Tracy, but I'm wondering if he's best as a jet sweep screen slant guy and not a downfield receiver. Sam, thank you for that. It's plausible. Ross, do you have any thoughts on Tyrone?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm curious. I feel like he didn't get too many chances downfield to see what he can do. So, I think it's possible that he's better suited for the screen slant game, but I certainly want to see him get some more chances downfield too. So hopefully that he gets some throws that way in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I agree. I think this might have been a situation where the play calling was sort of determined by scoring situation, and with Iowa comfortably ahead for most of the game, that if they didn't have to unleash Tracy downfield, then, well, why do it earlier? That being said, we did see a little bit when Smith-Marset was out last season. We saw a little bit of Tracy stepping into that number one role and doing some good things downfield. As a slant receiver, probably pretty good. As a screen receiver, probably pretty good. And we've seen that. Really anything where you can get him the ball in the open field, he makes good things happen. Now, if you get that to him, on a 25-foot or a 25-yard post or on a godforsaken bubble screen, it's however you do it is however you do it. And I was happy to see that he got 2 carries today, which is more than Gavin Williams and LaShawn Williams combined. Did not expect that. But yeah, this is always a case whenever you look at game by game stuff, especially early on in the season. There are going to be coaching decisions made that are probably not indicative of the season long plans as a whole. And my guess is the limited amount of chances that Tracy got today were an intentional choice and not something that we're going to have to worry about for the next 12 weeks. That's my guess. Russ, what do you think?
I agree. I mean, I'm not going to panic about Tracy yet. When Iowa was up, 21-3 start of the second quarter, I think. So at that point, I don't think they're going to get too exotic on offense, probably. So I think that's part of it. I also think it's just, part of it's a volume game. And you look at Iowa's passing game, Petrus threw the ball like 27 times. We're probably aiming to throw 25 to 30 times a game. You figure, 10 of those are going to go towards tight ends. Mm-hmm. 5 of those are going to go towards running backs. That really is just leaving 15 passes towards receivers, So that's just not that many chances, compared to a team with a much, bigger passing offense. I feel like, a team that's throwing the ball 45 times a game or something, that's so much more volume for receivers to have chances.
Yeah. And again, they were just in a situation here in week 1 where I think that there is this is just my read of the situation rather than something that they've come out and said, but I think part of the risk calculus and that sort of sliding scale that Kirk Ferentz expects out of his quarterback, a big part of that is, why are you throwing downfield if you don't have to, right? And part of me disagrees with that. And it's not like anybody ever got in trouble for trying to throw past the sticks on 3rd and 12 or anything like that. But, on 1st and 10, and Iowa up by multiple touchdowns in the second half, we can't really be all that shocked if they're throwing a crossing route 2 yards deep. That's how they want to run that offense. It's how they've wanted to run that offense for 20 years now, right? Well, I guess 19. They were lethal in 2002, and that's about it. But yeah, Joe asks, has anyone seen an update on Charlie Jones? His punt returning is a legit weapon for a team that relies so heavily on field position. Ross, have we seen anything on Chaz?
I have not. No, I hope he's okay. Someone said that Dolph said that he was in on the next punt return after that injury, but I don't know that Dolph was necessarily correct on that call.
And all these white punt returners look alike. Could have been Max Cooper. Who's ever going to be able to tell the difference? No. Yeah, he was an unexpected surprise in 2020. I don't think he was on very many people's radars at all going into that year, and he turned out to be a really productive punt returner. And yeah, we definitely like to see more of that this year. Hopefully, he's going to be good to go. And I think if it were really serious, I think we would have heard about it. I hope, but I don't know. So to answer your question, Joe, not really. we heard Dolph, and it's Dolph. All right. Do we have any more questions from the hoi polloi while we're here? Can we get more Justin Jacobs? Thank you, Adam, for the question from Periscope. Can we get more Justin Jacobs? I like the other guys too, but he looks ready. Well, we got a pretty decent amount of him. And the problem here is a personnel thing, which is that in the modern college ball, especially with the way Phil Parker runs his defense now, it's as much of a 4-2-5 defense as it is a 4-3. And so that means between Seth Benson, Jack Campbell, Dane Belton, and Justin Jacobs, you're going to have 3 of those guys on the field at most on any given play. So, yeah, I really like Justin Jacobs too. But you have to tell me who out of that 4 you're going to take off the field to get him on. And so it's just a matter of there's only so many snaps and so many spots on the field to go around. That being said, it's not like he wasn't on the field. He got 4 tackles today, 3 of them solo, combined for a tackle for loss, a 1-yard tackle for loss. So, he got snaps. And I'm happy with that. I'm happy with the production that they got from Belton, also a 4-tackle game, 6 from Campbell, 10 from Seth Benson, and again, it should be 200. The math will take care of itself. Just give him credit for 200 tackles because he was everywhere. Yeah, I mean that's probably what you expect from a linebacker rotation. Ross, am I missing anything here, or are we kind of where we would expect to be?
I don't think you're missing anything. I am just curious if Jacobs keeps this up, is it a thing where you can't come up with reasons to leave him off the field. So maybe you start getting him out there more. Maybe he starts taking a few snaps away from Benson or Belton, or which those guys aren't playing badly either. But
I'm happy with all of them. I think this is a good problem to have personally. It's a really, really good problem to have because they, oh boy, Jordan fan. They can adjust personnel based on who they see coming into the game, and they can play great rush defense. I think all those guys are fantastic in coverage, and I think that's going to continue over the next few weeks over the course of the season. And gosh, if one of them goes down injured for any amount of time, we don't want to see that. But this is football. It's a collision sport, and guys miss time. They have built so much flexibility into that linebacker core that they'll be all right. If Benson gets hurt, we don't want him to get hurt. But if he gets hurt, it'll be okay. They can say next man in and actually mean it, and not like next man in. It's not going to be one of those. I'm happy with where they are.
It seemed like there was a lot of rotation on defense overall today, which I thought was probably a little bit less in the secondary, but definitely in the front 7, more rotation. And very little drop off. So I think that was pretty encouraging.
Yeah, I was really happy with the amount of depth that we saw on that front four as well. Luke Van Ness, again, a guy who wasn't on a whole lot of radars coming into the game, but he got that sack, which we're happy to see. Logan Lee made his way into the game. I think he had 3 tackles on the game. Excuse me. So, I mean, in addition to guys like Noah Shannon, who had himself a pretty darn good game, 4 tackles of his own. There's a lot to be happy about here. Okay, looking forward. Thank you, Joe, for this one. Looking forward to the feast that will be Jacobs, Campbell, and Benson versus Bucky. Yep, you bet. Because in terms of a team that is not going to have the personnel that really, really tests Iowa's, ability to, cover the 4th and 5th receiver, it's Wisconsin, and it's not. And I don't say that to downplay how dangerous that offense is. We've seen more than enough of what Wisconsin can do to Iowa, especially when, I don't know, Iowa maybe needs to get one more stop just to have a chance to take the lead in Madison. We haven't seen that ever. But in terms of getting that specific personnel package onto the field, yeah, Wisconsin's where you're going to see it. And that's going to be a great matchup because, again, it's strength on strength. And anytime you get that in a game, it's more fun to watch. And that Wisconsin offense did not look fantastic today. Ross, did you see any of that game?
I did not. No, okay. I was busy this morning, so I missed that, but it did not look great from what I saw.
Yeah, there were some mistakes that they made in the red zone. There was block kick, a really bad fumble, and they almost fumbled another one away. In fact, they might have even missed 2 field goals. Now that I think about it, I say this while I'm not checking it whatsoever. But they looked only okay. They've got a kid at running back who's pretty good. Ches something or other. He got nearly 100 yards. So, but it's Wisconsin, right? Usually they just be like, pretty good Wisconsin rushing game, All right, so just a little bit of a refresh for everybody here. My name is Adam Jacobi, the Go Iowa Awesome and the Iowa Sports Review, and I am joined here by Ross WB, the editor-in-chief of Go Iowa Awesome, and a even better bearded individual than myself. Hard to believe, but it's true. And we are celebrating quite a big win today, 34-6 over previously ranked Indiana. I think we will not be seeing them in the top 25 for a while. If you are just joining us, be sure to hit like, be sure to hit subscribe. That helps us put together good numbers, get some fun guests on the show, and really puts this show in front of more eyeballs. More eyeballs is more questions, more fun, more interaction, and it helps grow a community of people just like you. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for the questions that we've gotten so far. I think we've got a few more. Speaking of underrated coaches, says Sam, thank you for the comment. LeVar Woods consistently has great units. Yes. Special teams have been great since he took over. Correct. To the point where it sort of feels like it's going to be an up or out situation for Woods. He's really earned as much trust as Ferentz wants to give him, and boy, I really, really hope that they find a spot for him on that coaching staff that matches what he's good at, matches his ambition. And I hope it stays on the Iowa sideline. I really don't think he's going to be a special teams coordinator for that much longer. And I say that with the utmost of respect for him. I think his future is as bright as just about anybody on that coaching staff. Sam, you're absolutely right. He's the real deal. Ross, what do you think?
Completely agree. I mean, he's done a phenomenal job with special teams the last few years, and I think he's one of the better recruiters too. So, yeah, I think his future is extremely bright, and there's only so many, premier spots on a coaching staff, so it'll be hard to juggle that. But I think we'll just enjoy him while we got him.
Yeah, I think that's what it comes down to, and you don't want to see him leave if you don't have to. But is this getting too far ahead of myself? But let's say in the 5 years, a certain coach in Iowa City decides to hang him up, and let's say that this certain coach, let's say that his son is still not quite at the top of that top 5 for replacing him for various reasons. LeVar's got to be high on that list, right? In terms of like a future Iowa head coach, he's really, really working his way up that ladder. Is that's a fair statement to say, right? Oh no, Ross has gone. Ross, I asked you a question. So I'm going to answer my question that I myself posed. Yes, Adam, that is an incredibly insightful insight. You've said it once again, and you said it with all your good words and your good personality. Thank you, Adam. You're welcome, Adam. But yeah, fully agree on the LeVar Woods hype train. I'm ready to give that as much steam as it needs. So excellent point. Sam says COVID was the best thing to ever happen to Wisconsin. I don't know. I think Elroy Hirsch was a little better than COVID-19. Ron Dane, a little better than COVID-19. But I see where you're going with that. He convinced everyone that they would be good this year. I'm fully ready to eat crow on that take, though. Again, I think in terms of things that are good for a football program, COVID-19 might be dead last place. I say that with the utmost of respect. But yeah, I don't know if Wisconsin's fooling anybody this year. It's not like they were ranked 5th in the nation. It's not like they were the prohibitive favorite coming into the Big Ten. They were the favorite, but just about everybody that you would read said, this division is really, really up in the air this year. And so if it's not Wisconsin, there's a bunch of teams that are probably going to be knocking on the door. After like where we are right now, week 1, boy, if someone wants to change their mind and say Iowa's now the favorite in the West, I'm not going to disagree. Wisconsin looks like it's got more question marks than before. It's not like Northwestern looks good. It's not like Nebraska looks good. Minnesota, a little bit dicey still. And obviously Illinois, not actually in that conversation. Sorry, Brett, not this year. Kind of looking pretty good. Kind of.
Illinois currently in a tight battle with UTSA right now. So,
well, they're. I mean that school's going to the San Antonio of the SEC. I don't think Wisconsin is the only team helped by COVID this year. Yeah, they're. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think I think last year's made it so hard to know what to expect from some teams this year. So
Iowa State included.
Iowa State, Indiana, Wisconsin. I mean, it was really hard to know who was good, who was bad, who was taking advantage of not taking advantage in a bad way, but just like if you happened to play a team that had 30 players out due to COVID, like that was kind of a help for you last year. And
yeah, and I think everybody was I say everybody, a very large portion of the players were under a whole lot of mental duress that hasn't exactly gone away this year, but is at the very least ameliorated a little bit. The fans weren't there. It's weird playing football in an empty stadium. Some teams got more up for it than not, but there was just so much flux going on in the football season last year. Yeah, I mean, it would have been it would be easy to be fooled, I think, by certain results that happened in college football last year, more so than usual. Joe says Iowa would have been top 10 if not for COVID. Hey, look, that's exactly what I was saying coming into the broadcast today. So zoom back from my hot take on that one. And I get why they weren't. I'm okay with the fact that their games did get canceled. Obviously, safety comes before, well, I want my team to be ranked high. And at the end of the day, all the pollsters can do is, reward teams for the games they did play. But I agree. I think Iowa got sort of the short end of the COVID stick, not including actual COVID. But I think the uncertainty of 2020 worked negatively for Iowa in ways that were outside of their control and outside of things that they were actually able to do on the field. So, yeah, I mean, I fully agree. And I think that the good news is the polls are probably going to be correcting that very big mistake of having Iowa that low in about 15 hours. No. We got some Sunday and Monday games, so it'll be after that. But okay, fine. 72 hours, we get that correction, and it's going to be a good one too. All right, we are coming up on 9 o'clock, and that is when I turn into a pumpkin. Or is that? No, that's not how Cinderella went. But we'll say it is. So, boy, what a great show. Ross, once again, the editor-in-chief at GoIowaAwesome.com. Thank you for joining me as always. I am your host, your friend, everything you want me to be. I'm Adam Jacobi. Thanks for joining us. Have a beautiful evening. Enjoy, celebrate 34-6. Go Hawkeyes. Go Iowa Awesome. Good night.